Every now and then you get a show that does everything it needs to do to convey its message, and Narcos Mexico, let's go. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking Narcos Mexico Season 2. This is a non-spoiler review. The show just came out today. I watched all 10 episodes this morning, and I need you in the comments down below. How are you feeling about this show so far? Did Season 2 live up to the hype? And let's get right into it. So, in Season 2, this continues the story of Felix and now the godfather of the first Mexican cartel, as he is struggling to maintain control, grow his empire, and reconcile the betrayals and sacrifices he had to make. As friction between the different plazas of the cartel rises, his control of the situation begins to slip, and meanwhile, the death of DEA agent Kiki at the hands of the cartel and corrupt politicians brings a hailstorm of retribution to Mexico. So obviously we're not going to spoil anything from Season 2, but we have to talk about that death that really impacted where this season is going at the end of Season 1, which was shocking. Well, not necessarily shocking. I kind of saw it coming, especially you look at a guy like Michael Pena, who may not stick around the entire time, but the way that they went about it and the way that they progressed that character to where you just, you fell in love with him, then that happens, and you see the fallout with his family, and it's heartbreaking. There is a moment with his, I don't even know if I want to talk about it because it was so heartbreaking. I believe it was in episode 8 or 9 in the first season, but a lot of moments that are pure emotion when it comes to something like that, and when it comes to something so real. And that's why I love this show. Narcos Mexico, well, Narcos in general, it's been doing this for a long time, and every season has brought something special to the table. Now, there have been a couple of seasons that have maybe been lackluster, or we wanted to move in a different direction, but the first season of Narcos Mexico, I think, got everything back on track, the way it was supposed to be. And this season amplifies that. This season continues to progress in such a direction and takes these characters to a place that was slightly expected, but was also chaotically beautiful. I mean, everyone is at each other's throats. Everyone is after each other. And that's what I love so much about this show is there isn't a really black and white story. There's no black and white in the characters. Everyone's in this gray area. Whether you're rooting for the good guys or the bad guys, well, sometimes the bad guys are a bit good, and sometimes the good guys are a tad bit bad. And you love an actor like Diego Luna so much, well, you're kind of rooting for him to be successful, even though he's the last guy you're supposed to be rooting for. But you understand his motivations, and that's the way you kind of dig into, and I want to say dig into a villain, even though it's hard to see Diego Luna like that, but that's who he's playing in this show. He is a villain. He is becoming the leader of this cartel, and now he is basically what the description said, the godfather of the first Mexican cartel. And so many scenes in this season, especially because last season was more his rise to power, and last season was understanding that he doesn't necessarily care as much about the money as much as he does being in power, being one step higher, one step above the politicians. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. He's in Mexico, so he has to work with the politicians. He has to work with the banks. He has to work with some people that maybe he's not the biggest fans of. But the conversations that he has in this season, he feels more in control than he did last season. There's one in particular, and he's basically saying, if I take away my money, we're going to ruin the economy of Mexico. And we don't want to do that. So you're going to play by my rules. And oh my, I just got chills seeing how wonderful he is in this role. One of my favorite performances of his. I think my favorite performance of his, absolutely. There's some really impactful and violent scenes as well. A lot of shootouts. I'm talking episode 4, episode 5, I believe. A couple that stand out. You have some torture scenes. There's one in episode 2 where someone's limbs are being cut off and you just, you feel every bit of it because they're trying to get information out of someone. In episode 3, there's a really intense and cool scene where they go and they kidnap someone from a hospital, and it's just the way the camera movements in this show intensify everything. I'm talking just a scene of dialogue between two characters. The camera is moving or it's placed in such a way you're on the edge of your seat, you're totally intrigued and engaged, and I am so impressed with the filmmakers behind Narcos Mexico, and even more impressed on a technical level in Season 2. Everything, like I said at the beginning of this review, is amplified. The stakes are raised. The characters, they feel maybe a bit more rich, and we're introduced to new characters who come into this situation and make it even more complicated, even more convoluted, and even more entertaining. And this season, you have two very distinct and different narratives. You have a group or someone who is seeking power. You have a group or someone who is seeking revenge. And when those begin to cross paths, that's when the entertainment comes from this show. Now, you can probably guess why some of these are seeking revenge. And because of that, we're going back and forth. We're capturing each other. We're torturing each other, trying to get information, trying to understand, okay, who should we go after because this happened? And once again, you probably know why they're doing it. A lot of it has to do with the fallout from Kiki, but we realize who is on whose side, even though we find ourselves rooting for multiple people who maybe we don't expect to root for in this show. And then we have a new group who comes in and kind of messes things up, shakes things up just a tad bit. And there's this weight the entire time you're watching this season, kind of knowing, because history plays out in a certain way. And this isn't 100% historical for sure, but we do know what happens to certain characters, and because of that, we're sitting and waiting on certain things to happen to lead to that point. And I'm not going to say everything happened that I expected, but a lot of it did. And I loved all of the different storylines. I love Scoot McNairy in this show, by the way, who plays Walt Breslin, his group of DEA agents that are going out and trying to make up for the loss of one specific person from last season. I know I keep repeating myself on that, but that really is kind of the crux of what happens at the beginning of this season. Then obviously you have our main character dealing with how fragile his criminal empire is and how some may not support him on the level that he believes, how some fear him, how some respect him, but those aren't necessarily the same things. And because of that, he is as much in danger as those who he believes fears him. So there's a lot going on here. There are a lot of political elements. Just the fact that this is true, scary. There was something that even happened during the filming of Season 1 behind the scenes where someone lost their lives, and a couple of questions being raised there. It's like, what actually happened to this guy? I mean, the cartel is real, folks. It's really real, and the fact that they're tackling this in this particular show, it's gutsy. It's gutsy, but if you're going to do it, you need to do it right. And I believe Narcos Mexico does it right. Now, did it slow down just a tad bit in the middle of the season? Yes. Are the episodes, in my opinion, just a tiny bit too long? At an hour apiece, 10 episodes? Maybe. But there wasn't necessarily anything that I would have stripped out entirely, whether it's a storyline or a character or something that didn't work. Everything worked. A couple of things could have been trimmed. A couple of things could have been shortened. This could be me speaking from the perspective of someone who had to binge all 10 episodes this morning, and that does take quite a bit out of you. So keep that in mind when I give you my score. So a couple of negatives. But I actually think I like this season more than Season 1. I was more engaged. I liked the storylines just a tad bit more. I was missing the presence of Michael Pena for sure. I love him. He was so good in Season 1. But because of what happened to him, we got a lot of interesting branches. We got a lot of interesting storylines that went in their own direction, and I think benefited from his loss, if that makes sense to you guys. So overall, Narcos Mexico Season 2, one of the most intense, engaging, intriguing series on television right now, especially on Netflix. If you love something like Sicario in the movie world and you've never seen this, please check this out. If you want a full spoiler review, I'll be doing that on the Movie House podcast feed, hopefully next Monday or Tuesday. If you guys enjoy these kinds of videos, if you like these Netflix reviews, be sure to leave your thoughts down below and hit that thumbs up button. It definitely helps out this channel. And I'm going to go, I'm going to go even higher than I expected to. I'm going 88%. For Narcos Mexico Season 2. A tad bit higher than what I gave Season 1. A fantastic show. Probably the best thing I've watched this year. It is just intense. It's incredible when you look at how deep and layered the storylines are. You're not necessarily going to gravitate to every character. You're not necessarily going to be on board with all of the actions, but at the end of the day, you're going to find entertainment, you're going to find interest, and it's going to cause you to become curious about history. And that's pretty important too, kids. School. All right, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate everyone who tunes into these videos and leaves your thoughts down below. And I will be back later on today with a review for Sonic the Hedgehog. Be on the lookout. I'll see you guys soon.